artist. I'm Indigo Vale. I'm a musician. I'm a one-man band, singer, songwriter, guitarist, etc. And I'm a music teacher. That's my profession. And yeah, I've just been playing instead.
How did you wake up to all of this then?
10 years ago, someone pointed me that it was Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson did a speech where he said, "I'm done with the way that Sony is using my image as an artist. So they're sexualizing my image, and I'm done with it. I owe them 2 songs." He was talking to his crowds. It was a famous YouTube video at the time. It's probably gone now. He said to his fans, he's like, "Look, I've got heaps of songs, and I'll just give them a couple, and that's it." And then overnight, they called him a paedophile. They called him a weirdo. They called him all these things. Now, I know people have their opinions about it. Fine. The point is, he was the first example of someone who spoke out about a hidden force which was operating in the music industry. And then there was Prince, and then just a whole host of other people. And from there, I found this channel on YouTube, and I just started going along with it. And it's taken me years, but over the years, over whatever that's been, 10 years, yeah, I've come to the point where I am today, where, you know, I recognize that basically it's all an illusion. Everything, as the Buddha said, it's all Maya. It's not real. Yeah.
And so you've been coming out and you've been playing music for a freedom cause.
Yeah.
How does it feel to be playing music for freedom?
I kind of stopped doing, over the lockdowns, I felt really frustrated. I did a couple of little online things, but yeah, I felt just frustrated with the music industry and just how everyone was going along with it. And I just kind of, I spent a lot of time just thinking, oh, you know, maybe music is just, doesn't matter. I've had a lot of that in my time, especially in this country. The arts are not, there's not a value given to the arts. Definitely not from up top, but you know, that's a long-term thing. And I just was like, oh, whatever. When this stuff has started to come around, it, for me, like, there's nowhere I'd rather be playing, you know, like I thought about. I have friends who are, you know, signed to big record labels and stuff like that, and that for ages, that was what I wanted. More than anything, you know, I want a record label and everything. Now I think, you know, they struggle to write music because they can't express anything, because we're in a world where real expression of the real issues is forbidden, like in Glastonbury or Reading or wherever. And I think, yeah, I wouldn't want to be there. What would I be writing music about? What, like toxic masculinity or something? Forget it. So it's been awesome to be here. I've loved it. It's been really interesting to be around these children. They have something which children I'm used to don't have. They have a hidden confidence and a kind of wisdom. And I think it's because, like Mike the Head was saying, in our system, in our education system, we basically, even if you're someone like me who doesn't want to bring this across, we, from the moment they enter, especially after early years, from the moment they enter year 1 at the very least, their own personal expression, what they want to do, what they believe in, what they value, all those things are quashed. These kind of obsessive focuses of like testing some narrow skill for something from a very young age. In year 1, you're 5 and 6 years old. And so children learn to be, okay, well, all that matters is what the teacher tells me is important. And, you know, you do get moments where you're talking about, I don't know, philosophy or RE or music or something, and but those are the moments of respite from this narrowing of vision. These children don't seem to have that. They, you know, I've just observed, like even like the older children, like the teenagers and stuff. There's something else there. There's a freer way of being, and it's amazing. It's amazing to see, and you know, I absolutely believe in this project 100%. I think this is the way forward, is to, as much as I love my job in education, but the old system, the rot is reaching the DNA of the system, unfortunately. And you know, maybe we can rescue certain bits here and there, but it feels it's number one, that will be very difficult, and number two, in certain cases I don't think it's possible. So yeah, I love it here. I believe in this 100%.
Are you worried about the sort of sexualization of children and
absolutely
the erosion of their history, you know, sort of attacking British culture, and also the feminism, the sexism, and the racism, you know, attacking white kids for their skin color?
Yeah. You know, it's obviously certain aspects of that have been going on for a while now. I mean, you know, a number of years. I've had children say strange things to me before, like all white people are racists and stuff. I've had 11-year-olds tell me that, which was okay, all right. But we are reaching a new point now. The sexualization of really young children it's in a way, it's unbelievable that it's happening. It's flying in the face of everything that the Department for Education is supposed to stand for. It's flying in the face of a document I have to read as a teacher called Keeping Safe in Education, talking about safeguarding and safeguarding children from grooming. But at the same time, we're being told to introduce very young children to sexual practices, talking about the sexual attractions of adults, you know, which is what LGBT is. It's about sexuality, right? Why does a 6 or 7-year-old need to engage with that? You know, children do have a thing called innocence, which any parent, if they just pay attention, will see. If you talk, it's always been the case, if you talk to a young child, you know, in a Disney film, the moment that they kiss, the children are like, oh, what's that? That's because it's not time yet. When you enter puberty, then these things start happening. But it's getting younger and younger. Sex ed is being taught in year 1 now. It's being taught for 5 and 6-year-olds. What can they possibly be teaching? What possibly could a 5 or 6-year-old need to know about sex? And the thing is, of course, is that it's also vague enough so that, like Miriam Cates was saying in Parliament, that you're getting these strange examples of one mum contacted her and said, you know, my 6-year-old's been taught about masturbation. How can that be happening? And if it's happening, right, you know, in the past there'll be something strange happens in a local authority, there should be a massive uproar, you know, it should be all over the media, everything, but of course it's not. And in fact, like, I feel, to try and talk about this with colleagues, I feel like the odd one out. I feel like, and actually I've felt like this with friends before, when I've tried to talk about protecting children from over-sexualization, people think I'm some kind of like dinosaur from the 18th century, or what's the word? You know, they think I'm a prude. I'm like, no, children, it's not ready yet. That is a massive concern of mine. More than that, the overall propaganda, various things, rewriting of history. I've seen this happen in assemblies, you know, talking about Queen Elizabeth I and just and interpreting history in the most shallow, you know, modern perspective. So, you know, the Christians in the 15th century were Islamophobic. I mean, how is that possible? You can't use that language when you're talking about something 500 years ago. But again, there's not even elementary understanding of how history should be taught or understood, about objectivity in teaching. It comes down to, does the individual teacher have that in them? You know, is the local authority doing training on that, and are there discussions going on? A lot of the time that's not the case, and with young teachers, they don't have a clue. There's nothing about this in teacher training. I didn't have I'm interested in history, so I have a teacher training, you don't touch on it. And so you get this weird situation where a teacher will just stand up in front of a class and say something weird like, you know, Queen Elizabeth I was a bad lady. How can you, you know, or you know, it could be anything. Or she was a good lady. Or King Henry VIII was a bad man. That's not how you teach history, you know. So there's this overall pervasive modern propaganda, and it is really hard to. I've had a child telling me I'm a polluter because I have a car, you know, because the climate narrative, the climate change narrative is again so strongly pushed in schools. I've been asked to teach things, resources which Greenpeace have given. So I'm thinking, so am I just like actively pushing a political organisation's point of view to 6-year-olds? You know, it's really pervasive now, and it is very hard when you're in a school to kind of counteract it in any kind of way. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
I'm the food star.
Do you think things can change for places like this? Do you think that this could be the anti-McDonald's sort of franchise that goes around the country?
Yeah. I've often thought to myself, what would it be like being a teacher without self-censorship? Obviously, as a teacher, you have a duty to not impose your own subjective notions upon children. So I'm not talking about that. But I'm talking about, I had a discussion last year about masks and things, and it was an open discussion, and some of the things that children said were really interesting. You know, children have opinions about what's going on. If you let them speak, they will say things. Not all, but many do. But we have to self-censor. There are many subjects which are off limits. Here, well, nothing will be off limits, you know, because no one else is deciding the rules. So yeah, I think the major challenge here is how do you make this kind of like viable economically for teachers, and you know, all that kind of conversation. That there's a long way to go there, but if this becomes viable, like for paying teachers, this is what I want to move into, this kind of thing. I think this is the way forward. Yeah.
It's really just too real for me.
Thanks everyone.
And one thing, just to go back a little bit, have you heard about Lord Pearson and his time on the teacher training board?
No.
So
Like-
Lord Pearson, he was in the House of Lords. He, was quite influential in the Conservative Party. He tried to get onto the teacher training board because he'd done a lot of philanthropic stuff. He's involved in government and whatnot. And when he got onto it, it was this amazing interview, bombshell interview. But when he got onto it, he found out the entire thing was filled with communists. And this was about 1990, 1991. So he went and he told Margaret Thatcher, and she said she was going to abolish it. And then she got booted out.
Yeah. Wait, and abolish what again?
The teacher training board. So the board that trains the people who teach all of the children is full of communists.
I mean, on some level, I think that's a kind of open. I think people know that the teaching profession is full of communism. But of course, the modern expression of communism is quite different to that in like the 80s and stuff. I mean, I've had it. I'm still currently a National Education Union rep, and the stuff that the unions are pushing, I would say, in my experience, it's the stuff the unions are pushing is much more explicit than the teacher training providers. The teacher training providers, yeah, there was some stuff about like social constructivism, which is, I guess, is a kind of socialist notion of how to educate. I think that's a bit of a debate there. I think there may be some merit to some of those ideas, but the union are absolutely pushing groupthink, pushing, leftist ideology in terms of race, climate change, all those things. And I've challenged them. I've challenged my local NEU association specifically about lockdowns and about the vaccines. And when I did, the first thing I said to them was that there's been in 2020 and 2021, there was no polling of the union members about their opinions. So a union is now operating just from the top. They just say, this is what we're doing, right? And the truth is that a lot of teachers will not, it's not necessarily, well, what I found was when I asked them, I said, do you agree that this was November 2020, do you agree we should lock down again? We should shut the schools? And there were 11 union members. Sorry,
No, carry on.
Okay, so there were 11 union members in my school, including me. All but 2 said no, right? So I went back to the union and I said, people don't actually agree. But if I hadn't asked them, nothing would have been done, because people just go along with it. It's like, oh, it's the union. And they have, I've been on training courses with them where they have this underlying assumption that, the union have an agenda and that everyone's on board with that. And it's almost like a neuro-linguistic programming. I struggled when I was in the training to kind of say, I don't actually agree with that part of what you're arguing for. But that conversation is never had. It's assumed that we're all on the same page, that we all agree with the union. And I know other people in the National Education Union who have spoken out and they've just quit, and I probably should. That is the area though where, call it communism, call it whatever, this ideology is aggressively being pushed. And I wouldn't argue that every teacher is a communist, but it's more that there's a blindness to just, for instance, when Greenpeace send a resource to all the schools in the country, it's a kind of blind acceptance of course we'll teach that to the children. That's what's happened recently. Now, it was about plastic, so whatever, but it's more like a blindness. I wouldn't say that if you talk to every teacher individually they would claim themselves as Marxists, but it's almost, we move beyond that now. They don't even need to know what it is they're actually spreading, if that makes sense.